Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming and visiting. I appreciate it. If you'd hit the like button before you leave, that helps me out a great deal. Um, Today, I wanted to do a new kind of ring setting that I've never tried before, and it's got kind of a unique way to attach a six-prong setting to a band. I'm going to do kind of a fancy band on it that's split at the bottom and made out of 18 gauge sheet. And then we'll put a kind of a interesting modern looking prong setting on the top and attach it in an interesting way. So um, before we get started on that though, I wanted to thank all my subscribers. We're about to roll over 3,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you all for that. I appreciate all the kind things and the good suggestions in the comment section, and feel free to do that for this video as well. If you're interested in my Patreon, I have a great group of people over there supporting me through Patreon, and that, as well as some other links of ways to support the channel or support me, or just to check out some of my creations, are all in the video description down below. So make sure to visit that before you leave. And with that being said, let's get on this project. Let's look at my little sketches that I made. Okay, so what I'm thinking I'm going to do here is, this is a side view, this is a, well, they're both side views. This is like looking at the ring from this way. So we'll have a hole cut out of some 18 gauge sheet, but there's going to be two layers of it. It's going to split like this from the side, and we'll have a connector down at the bottom made out of 10 gauge square wire. These prongs here, I'm going to make the setting separately, and then we'll solder it onto the band after the band's made. And I'll show you kind of a cool way that I figured out how to do that. I'm sure I didn't invent the way, but I reinvented it in my brain anyway. So, all right, so let's get started. Like I said, we need 18 gauge sheet. I'm going to use 16 gauge round sterling wire for the prongs. This little piece down here is going to be 10 gauge square wire. And then this loop that's going to go underneath the stone in between the prongs is going to be made out of 18 gauge sterling silver. So I think that's pretty much everything we'll need. As always, I'm using a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux, and I use hard silver solder for pretty much everything. So let's get started. I think probably let's start with the band here, and then we'll make the setting after that. So I need to cut out two pieces that are at least big enough for this. Okay, so we'll cut out a piece of that. I get asked about these little shears I use all the time. These are just little Fiskars craft shears that you can get at just about any hobby store. I'm kind of pushing them past what they're supposed to be doing. But surprisingly, cutting 18 gauge sheet like this all the time, I've been doing, with this pair that I'm using now, I've been using it for a year or two now, and they still haven't broken. So they feel like they could though, because they're kind of, plastic, mostly plastic, and just a little bit of metal. Okay, so we use this as a template to cut another piece here. I should just do it like right there. Pretty much the same size. Trying to get these back to mostly flat. So here's my thinking as far as cutting out the circle here and getting the shape right. I think I will stick these two together and wrap masking tape around them, and then I'll draw out the design on the masking tape, and then I'll use the saw to do that. That way we don't have to do it twice and run the risk of not doing it exactly the same. So it'll be pretty much identical if we do it this way. Ooh, that smells strong. So let's find the center of this, kind of. At least pretty close. This one is about a size 8. This is actually a lapidary template I'm using. I don't cut many stones anymore, but I should just use one of these. It's pretty close. That's about the same. Okay, so to start with, I think I'm going to punch a hole in here with a drill, and then use a center punch to put a dimple there. Well, first we'll put a dimple there with a center punch, and then we'll drill, and then we'll use the jeweler saw and work a circle out of there. And then I'll probably will do some sawing on this too, on the outsides, in order to get them to be as close as possible to the same. So I could separate them at that point and then just trim them, but I may not get them perfect if I do that. So let's move over to the sawing area. Welcome to my extensive, clean sawing and Dremel area. Okay, so I'm going to put a little dimple right there with the center punch, and I kind of clamped it down so it doesn't run away from me. So let's give this a little whack. That'll just keep the drill from chattering around too much. In theory, I'm going to put a little thicker saw blade on since this is thicker material. Okay, oh, got to put it through this first. Need some more coffee, Chad. There we go. Okay. Put a little wax on there. You can watch my sad attempts at sewing. Okay. Well, that blade held up well, so. Okay, I think I'm going to clean those up with the Dremel a little bit. Okay, so I think the best way to do this, I've got these all cleaned up, or at least most of the way cleaned up, and got them to where they're the same size, and the hole is straight across from each other, close enough. I'm going to put them on this softer surface, this magnesia block, and just make a little teepee of them. And I'm just going to kind of tack them together with the solder here at first, because I think because of the angle, I want it to be a straight angle. I don't want it to squish together at the top and then go flaring out. I want it to come straight down. And so I may have to insert a little piece of tapered sterling on the inside to fill that cavity and then resolder from the other side as well. But let's get it tacked together first. So find that piece of 10 gauge clear wire. There it is. I cut a piece. I really want it to stick up into the band just a little bit so I can Dremel it down so it kind of matches the curve on the inside. So I'm going to kind of set it to be like that. But I think it only needs to be probably pretty short. Oops. Probably about not that long, and then we'll file it. And this is going to need a little bit of a taper in one direction so that to match that angle. So trying to get it positioned kind of centered. I'm going to go ahead and solder that one in. Really just flux it and then pick solder some on this side, flip it over and pick solder. I could do it on the inside here too. Looks like I got plenty of solder over there. I'm not going to be shy about adding quite a bit of solder here because I want it to be seamless. See how that looks. That looks pretty clean. Don't see any big gaps or anything. So, let's see. I want to make sure that little crack that's in here isn't there. And so I'm going to slide a piece of 26 gauge sheet that I filed down into there and then solder that in. I'm going to taper it a little bit this way, so it's thinner on one side than the other. I got that sharp side. Put it. Just pick a little on that side, flip it over, and pick a little on the other side, then we'll just cut out the inside there. Now I'm just going to remove that excess. Okay, I'm going to go grind that away with the Dremel. So I did a lot of cleanup with the Dremel and with the file. I actually went back and I pick soldered a little bit more solder up on the top here, so it was a little bit more symmetrical there. Now we need to make the little setting that we're going to mount on here. Like I said, I'm going to make it out of 16 gauge round wire. What I need to do, oh, I never even showed you the stone we're using. Pick that little oval Peridot. So I thought he'd be pretty in there. Set him there so I won't lose him. Okay. To start with, I'm going to cut 3 pieces of this stuff, and it's going to make, each one of these is going to make 2 of the prongs. It has to actually, it's going to actually wrap around the inside of this band. So I'm thinking about, I don't know, these are way longer than I probably need them to be, I'm guessing, but let's go about 1.5 inches, 30 centimeters, or millimeters I should say. Okay, now I'm going to straighten these out. For me, I always just hold them with the flat nose pliers, the piece of wire. I just use my fingers to gently bend it. Yeah, so I'm just using the pliers for leverage, kind of. Seem to have better luck that way. If it's round wire, if it rolls pretty easily on the table, you know you're there. Probably close enough for what we're doing here. So right now we're just going to attach these 3 together, but in order to do that, let's find the center. That'll help us get things oriented. Okay, so now, remember how I said this is going to kind of wrap around the top of this thing? We're going to actually solder it to the underside of here after we cut a slot in this. So the slot is going to have to be as wide as these 3 wires together, but before we do that, I want to get them soldered together in a row, have where they separate at the correct distance. So I'm going to kind of eyeball it a little bit, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra room because once we solder it on here, we're going to have to wrap them up around there. So I'm going to have to file a little bit extra so that it can make that bend, but I'm thinking so two of these I need to bend outwards from that center point a little bit so that they don't solder to each other the entire length down. So I'm going to bend this slightly like that, and then at the end of the purple here I'm going to bend this one slightly like that. So when we put them together they'll be in contact just in that spot. And we'll do the same thing with this one. You don't have to get too crazy on the bends, you just need to make sure they can't touch. Because when we go to solder these together, like this, you don't want it to go all the way up the entire length of it, looking up here. So I'm going to get these pretty close to the same. You might even, and I'm going to do it this time, I'm going to file this a little bit flatter on this side so it gets a nicer attachment here. Right. Do the same thing on this one here. Anyway, when we solder these together nice, they'll have a nice tight seam there. So let's do that next. See if I can't dribble a little flux on there this time without spraying everything out of position. You could just lay a piece across there if you want to. I just pick solder almost everything anymore. Make sure we get one on that other side too. What we're going to do is we're going to have this solder on from the opposite side and bend up around the outside there. So what we're going to have to do is file some notches in the inside of this a little bit. So let's see if we can't figure out how wide to do that. It's pretty close on how big I made that. So right there. I also need to calculate the spot that's kind of directly opposite this, so I'm going to kind of try and figure that out. It's about what my eyeballs tell me. Okay, so I think I'm going to do a couple of things over with the Dremel and with the saw, so let's go over there. So I'm going to use the jeweler's saw to kind of get the mark started so I can keep a nice even cut in here so I don't get it too cockeyed, which I will tend to do with the file. I'm just going to kind of delineate. And we don't want to get too crazy. We just want to kind of mark it, and then we'll use the Dremel to do it. Now for this one, we're going to have to do the same kind of deal. But we need to know if that's going to go there. So we need to about know the width of it. That's pretty good. So just a little bit to either side of the purple mark there. And I'm just going to, again, I'm not going to go too deep on the notch here. Basically, I'm just grinding this thinner in between those two areas that I designated with the saw blade. Like I said, don't go overboard, just need to kind of make a mark. Okay, and then I think I'll use the file to do the rest of this one here. So let's just go back over there and I'll just kind of file that so it's got a nice symmetrical notch there. Okay, so let's use that file here. See if we can get this neatened up a little bit. It doesn't quite fit. Oh, look at that. It's right in there. Okay. I'll use the magnesia block on this one here. I think I'm going to kind of try and put this down in a little bit. That looks pretty good. Quite a bit of mass in that chunk of square wire up there. Quite a bit of mass in the band. Not very much mass down in the bottom chain comparatively, probably, so I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time heating the band to get that up to temperature. And, I've already got some solder there, but I want to make sure it's got a good connection all the way across. In order for that to happen, I want to make sure there's plenty of solder there. I think we got that okay. I think this is kind of a cool way to make a setting. If I had figured this out a long time ago, it would have made making a prong setting a little bit easier. At least this sort of a prong setting. So, just to make sure I got enough room to bend this a little bit, I'm going to file this slight angle there. Same way here. That should give us a little bendable room. I'm also, at this point, I'm going to try and make sure that these guys are all pretty symmetrical. And I think we can just kind of push it up. So now is a good time to get them all kind of lined up in the right direction. Looks pretty good. Part of the fun thing about this one is once we get the whole setting made up top here, we can grind away at the bottom there and it'll look just like all one piece there. It'll be pretty slick, I think. So let's see if we can't get these shaped like the stone a little bit, and then we'll make a little ring. Actually, let's make the ring first. So I need to make a little ring that's just about the same size as this stone here, so that when I set it on top of the ring, you can no longer see the ring. But not so small that it should be pretty close to the same size. That's a little big still. And we're going to start to get close there. Still a little tiny bit big. I could just see the edge of it outside of it. That's better. Okay, we'll solder this guy shut. I'm going to try and pull these out pretty symmetrically. So I don't want it sitting too high. So I got to kind of figure out how I want these guys to sit. But these guys need to go further out, the middle ones. Pretty close to like that level. I don't know if I'll be able to get it too much lower than that. One thing I can do now is I can file kind of a thinner part on the inside of each of those prongs at that level. And so I'm going to try and make a mark so I can get them pretty symmetrical. Okay, so I actually use the rounded part of the half-round jeweler's file. File a little narrower spot on each of these on the inside. Okay, so now it's time to get these to get this little ring to stay in position, hopefully. So I'm going to bend some of these up slightly, across from each other one at a time. I may need to cut a couple of these a little bit shorter just so I can push them closer together. I'll do the two center ones. That's pretty good. If it stays there, I think I'd be happy with that. So most of the mass is in the bottom of this band again, so I'm not going to heat the prongs too much until the very end. Oops, come back here. There you go. I really dropped the ball there. But I'm going to turn it around for this one over here. Sometimes it's easier to turn the piece around than to just try to reach over and pick something where you can't even see what you're doing. So. I believe we got all 6 of them. So far that's looking pretty good. I guess we'll let that pickle for a while and then we can clean it up and set the stone and polish it. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's the things that I did. I polished it. I wanted to show you the inside of the ring where I ground down the round wires that make up those prongs that we wrapped around the inside, and it looks pretty much seamless now. So same way with on the inside of that as well. So, the other things that I did were I did a general polish on the outside. I cut these off to about the length they needed to be. I also filed a narrow spot in the bottom of each of these. I'm still in frame there. In order for the girdle of the stone to kind of sit right up against there, and then I should be able to fold these over. You'll notice I kind of filed them to a point and then polished them, so I think it might look cool that way. If they're too long, I can always cut them off shorter, but let's see how they look this way. So let's make sure it's sitting upright. And we'll try to push one of these down a little bit. And go the opposite side. What should go 45 degrees, or one of the other corners, I guess, if you could call these things corners. These are pretty hard. I may need to file some of these a little bit thinner in order to do this, but we'll see. And I was going to go back and do a little cleanup polishing after I was done with this anyway. Lay it down a little better. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to probably do a little final cleanup like I said. There's our ring. It's got kind of an interesting profile, I think. I bet that'll be a good one. I think people will like that. So probably we'll do that one again. I like that one a lot. So All right, that's about it. I'll take some better pictures and put them at the end of the video. All right, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That helps me out a lot. And check out some other videos I have here. There's quite a bit of content. I just passed 150 videos. So I've been rapidly putting together a lot of good content, both for beginners as well as for people with a little more experience who just want some ideas to stimulate their creative process. So check them out, consider subscribing, and if you do, make sure to ring the bell when you do so that you get notifications when I release a new video, which is generally Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate your support, and happy silversmithing. Take care.